Fast thinking and slow thinking must be coupled. Slow thinking requires differing opinions. And I want to talk to you about something. I want to talk to you here about vaccinations, but I do not want to get into the vaccination thing. I am a big believer in vaccinations. A lot of people aren't. Fine. That's a difference in opinion. But we have entered a place. Adam Schiff has come out and said that he believes that we should silence the government, Google, YouTube, Facebook, and all of Amazon should restrict anti-vaxxers, if you will. Any information that does not fall into line with what the government studies show on vaccinations. That's extremely dangerous. One of the guys who has put together a documentary called VAXXED is Bigtree. He's one of the preeminent voices of the vaccine risk awareness movement all around the world. He's a founder of the nonprofit, the Informed Consent Action Network, and he is one of the first to be banned. Welcome to the program, Del.
Thank you very much, Glenn. Thank you for having me, and thank you for discussing this very important issue.
Yeah, and I want to talk to you, Del, about what happens. I mean, first of all, what you were told and how this is impacting you and the voices of reasonable people. And forget it, even unreasonable people. Just affecting the voices of anybody who believes differently than the federal government.
Well, we've seen this throughout history. I mean, every time, a government really begins to fail, it starts to use coercion and then bullying. Then ultimately, I believe this is book burning. This is a fear that the information that is against the perspective of the government, if it's out there, it's dangerous. And oftentimes when we look out, through history, governments start seeing themselves as the victim against, other information, or in my case, I would say truth. I made a documentary about a whistleblower at the CDC that came forward and said that they had committed scientific fraud on the MMR autism study and that they knew that the MMR vaccine could be causally linked to autism in that study, and they covered it up and hid it from the people. It wasn't my opinion. I made a documentary. I put people in front of a camera. I let them speak their truth. Dr. William Thompson still works at the CDC. He is still protected by whistleblower status. So how is it that is misinformation, which is what this is being called? So, yeah, censorship at Amazon. They pulled we were on Amazon Prime. Anybody could watch it. You could stream it. And now it's been pulled, and, I think that that's a dangerous step when the government starts getting involved. Look, we know Amazon is a private company. They can do what they want. But when government officials start pressuring private companies and industries to do their bidding or to censor people, then you're moving into a very, very dangerous place. I mean, it may not be dangerous in China or Iran, but here in America, where we're supposed to have freedom of speech, that is shocking and terrifying.
So, Delvin, what are you going to do about this? What is your recourse?
Well, my recourse is to continue doing what I've been doing for the last 3 years, which is continuing to investigate our government, our health agencies. I've won 2 lawsuits against the Health Agency of America. I've won a lawsuit against the National Institute of Health. I won a lawsuit against Health and Human Services, proving that they are not doing the safety research demanded by the laws of this country when it comes to vaccines. Also, just so you know, I think that the DVD sales of VAXXED have gone through the roof. We're rating higher than we ever have because people in America and around the world still have blood pumping through their veins, and when they're told they can't look at something, they become curious. I mean, this is what happened with the film in the beginning. We got kicked out of Tribeca Film Festival after having been accepted, and then Robert De Niro came out and defended the film, and even after Robert De Niro defending the film, the pharmaceutical sponsor of Tribeca, the Sloan Foundation, ended up pushing us out, and there was nothing Robert De Niro could do. That censorship drove more curiosity and made VAXXED one of the biggest movies, on vaccine risk around the world. There's been bomb threats in theaters around the world where VAXXED has tried to be screened. So Obviously, there's something in this movie that, governments do not want you to see, that the pharmaceutical industry do not want you to see. And that curiosity is driving, we're going to have the biggest sales this month than we've had in the last 3 years since we first, toured with it in 2016.
Then the argument on the other side would be, then we're doing you a favor.
They are doing us a favor, but they're not doing the Constitution a favor, and they're not doing a favor for the future of America. I'm not worried about sales of my film. That's not what this is about. We are talking about censorship. We are talking about, in this country right now, we are taking away, there's multiple states, there's a push by the federal government, both a congressional hearing and a Senate hearing, to take your right to choose what's injected into your children away. We're seeing it in states all across the country to take your ability to opt out of this vaccine program away. Let's take vaccines out of discussion, Glenn. We are talking about turning our children into government property of the United States government, meaning the government overrides your decision as a parent. They can inject your child with whatever they want, whenever they want, however they want. When we look back at history in Nazi Germany and China, how do we think that it would be intelligent to give our government control of our bodies? And by the way, it's not going to end with children. There's a policy called Healthy People 2020 that Health and Human Services put together, which is a forced vaccination program for every adult in America. So children are only the beginning. If we step onto this slippery slope, we are talking about not controlling our bodies, not having the right to say, I don't know what's in that shot you're about to give me. I don't want it. I don't want my child to have it. Is it really outrageous or preposterous to think that we shouldn't have the right to stop injections coming into our own bodies from a government agency?
When it comes to things, and see, this is where I may disagree with you on vaccines, but I am really torn, and I'm in your favor when it comes to choosing yourself. But I am torn because we do have a social contract with each other for things like polio. I mean, we got rid of polio. Now it's coming back. It's because people are saying, I don't want that. Well, okay, does that affect me and my children as well? I mean, I don't want to have leper colonies where the people who don't have the vaccine have to go off and be in a leper colony. I also don't want a country where they're telling me I have to have this. I mean, I have to have this RFID chip put in me because it makes for, commerce, and it makes them able to track me. It's for my safety. They put this chip in now. The doctor can monitor my heart and everything else. I don't want any of that stuff. And you have a right to say no. It is your body. That's
absolutely right. And I want to correct one statement. Polio is not coming back. You made that statement. There's no polio in America. And the only cases of polio around the world right now are vaccine strain polio. They're being caused by the vaccination program in third world countries. Those are the facts. What we are talking about, though, is measles. And perhaps that's what you meant was they're saying that measles is coming back. And that's not true either. Actually, when you look at the scientific definition of eradication, that they accept that there will still be swings of measles outbreaks up to like a couple thousand is still inside of considering it to have been eradicated. So a couple hundred people with measles is acceptable. It sits within the realm of still eradicated. But the point I think that you're trying to make is that is there a danger to vaccines? And I know you don't want to really get into this conversation, and anyone that really wants to get into that, they can watch the talk show I do every week called The Highwire. I'll be on at 11 a.m. today. Every Thursday I go on in Pacific time, and I discuss exactly that. But the numbers aren't real, Glenn. We're being lied to about how the numbers work. The safety of vaccines is what I want to talk about. I mean, in the end, we can talk about infectious disease, which is all the CDC wants to discuss, is we've eradicated measles. But if we've eradicated measles and caused one of the greatest autoimmune disease crises of our time, neurological disorders through the roof, when we were getting 10 vaccines in the 1980s, Glenn, we had 12.8% chronic illness in our children. Now that we give 72 vaccines by the time you're 18, that rate has gone up to 54% of America's children have a chronic illness, either an autoimmune disease or a neurological disorder. That is a crisis of astronomical proportions. In the same point, in 1960, you had a death rate of measles of 1 in 10,000. That's a zero. That's a tiny fraction. At the same time, your rate of autism was 1 in 10,000. That means 400 children in 1960 would have been diagnosed with autism. Today, this year, 100,000 children are going to be diagnosed with autism. It has grown to 1 in 36 children. Measles is still at 1 in 10,000, and you can listen to scientists telling you that it's been debunked, vaccines don't cause autism, except there's whistleblowers coming out all over the place, including Dr. William Thompson from the CDC, Dr. Andrew Zimmerman, who is a leading neurologist working for the government. He's come out and said there is a mechanism by which vaccines cause autism. The science is crumbling around this planet, and that's why they're trying to shut us up.
I disagree. But
let's talk the facts.
No, that's not what you're on. That's not what we put you on for. I'm not going to get into I'm not going to get into the middle of it. If people want to find the facts, they know where you are. I am here to say that freedom of speech, you have the right to say these things. You have the right to not have your voice silenced. You have the right to do it, and it is important for a civil society, if we are to be thinking human beings, to have access to the views that we don't necessarily like or agree with. We must be able to access those. And that is the real issue here for me, is Del Bigtree should not be silenced. You should not be silenced. And you silence this guy because, well, that's crazy talk. Well, once they get rid of the ones that you think are crazy, who's next? You eventually lose your own ability to speak. And it is real and it is happening. We must stand against anything that goes against individual liberty, because that is truly what made America great. Del, thank you so much. God bless. You can find Del Bigtree at icandecide.org.